Welcome to the Real View podcast, where Ohio Realtors connect you to innovators and influencers, keeping you with the real view of real estate. Whether you're a broker, agent, first-time homebuyer, industry leader, or just happen to stumble upon our podcast today, you can expect to hear tips, tools, tricks, interesting information, and so much more from the experts in Ohio's real estate game. Hey everyone, welcome to today's episode of the Real View podcast. I'm your host, Allison Wiley. With me is my co-host, Carrie R. Blaster, and joining us as our special guest today is Alex Cruz, who is the National Vice President of the LGBTQ Plus Alliance. Alex, we are so happy to have you here today, and Carrie, thank you always for joining me too.
You are so welcome, Allison. I'm happy to be here, snuggled in my home, surrounded by snow. I bet it's even colder for you, Alex, because you are up in the great city of Cleveland. But before we get started, we ask all of our guests the same question, which we love because the answers are fantastic. As you know, the podcast is called The Real View. And what we want to know from you is, what is the best view that you have ever had?
Oh, good morning. Thank you for having me. Best view I've had. I've been thinking about this because, I've heard back on other podcasts and I'm like, I need to come up with something cool and something different or what it is. So I recall back, I was in Costa Rica on vacation. Several years back, we were in the rainforest region of Costa Rica, and it is absolutely beautiful, breathtaking. It's like something out of a movie. So I'm sitting in a hot tub with a bottle of champagne, okay? And you have all these beautiful trees and flowers of these colors, and then there's monkeys going through them, like wow, real monkeys going through the trees, and birds, like big macaws and toucans and things like that. And then there's an active volcano. Well, it's active but not active, but volcano off to my right with some smoke coming out of it, and it just seemed so surreal. Like I thought I was in a movie or something that was created by Disney, because it did not seem real to me.
One of those things that you look around and you're like, where am I? Is this real life?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
That is fantastic. I kind of wish I was there today. I do like the snow, but I tell you, some sunshine will be nice.
I do like the snow too. Again, not being originally from Ohio, I'm originally from Florida. I had never seen snow in my life till I moved here. And people think I'm crazy, but I absolutely love it. Like when it's snowing, I might as well be 5 years old out the way I am outside playing it in the snow.
I wish I enjoyed snow that much. I'm just like, oh my gosh, I have to scrape off my car again. Like, no, I hate it. I enjoyed it on Christmas Day. Like Christmas Day, it was beautiful. We had that white Christmas. Other than that, no thanks.
I shovel off my car with a smile. I'm like, look at the snow.
Your family probably thinks you're nuts for wanting to be up here.
If you ever need another car to scrape off, Alex, mine is always available.
Well, that's actually kind of a good segue into talking about you, Alex, and your work within the real estate industry. As Allison mentioned, you are the vice president of the LGBTQ Plus Real Estate Alliance. You also do a lot of work here in Ohio in your capacity as a realtor. But before we talk about those things, I just want to back it all the way up and find out, A, how did you become a realtor? And then I guess, B, how the heck did you get to Ohio?
All right. And I do get that question a lot, actually, about the Ohio part, not the realtor. So I've actually grown up around it a lot. Back in Florida, my aunt, had the brokerage. Well, she started off as an agent. Now she has a brokerage. So I've kind of been around it like my whole life. I was licensed in Florida too. I did a very part-time there because I had the job. I was in retail management, and I wasn't ready to give up, that steady paycheck for something that was kind of there. Plus, again, since I've been around it, I'm like, it's one of those, do I really want to do this? Do I not want to do this? And that kind of stuff. So then it just got to a point in my life where I wanted to make a change. And I did know two people in Ohio. And that's why when I decided I wanted to leave Florida and I had to go someplace where, I knew a person or two, I wouldn't go where I knew nobody. And I had visited before. I didn't throw a dart on at a map or anything like that. I had been here a couple of times. I really love, especially up here in Cleveland, I love the vibe the city has. There's such great civic pride in the state and in the cities. I have more shirts that say Cleveland on it than I've ever had anything that said Miami on it, So
that's awesome.
So that civic pride that Ohioans have and in the state and for the city is something I had never really felt, because being from South Florida, in Miami, almost everybody moves from there, from someplace else, and moves to there. So it kind of like you don't run into very many people that are locals there. So like I'll meet people and they're like, "Hey, we just moved here from so and so. Where you from?" I'm like, "Oh, from here." They're like, "No. Originally, where you from?" "Here. I'm from here." And then I'm like the rare Pokemon. They want to take a selfie or something like that because they just met a native Miamian or something like that. So that was interesting, and I wanted to experience just new culture, and that's how I ended up here.
So you came up to Ohio knowing two people, and that was enough to
Yep.
get you to Cleveland. So did you immediately start practicing real estate again, or what was your plan when you got here?
I knew before I got here I was going to do real estate. So I already signed up for, my classes, and I took my classes 3 weeks. That was actually the time I did it. It's going on 6 years now. It'll be 6 years at the end of this month, actually. So at the time it was in class only. Now they offer online. So I took my 120 hours in 3 weeks and then kind of passed my test. So I was licensed by April and I got here February 23rd. So in a month and a half, practically I passed and, got licensed and started practicing.
Alex, you are the 2021 Vice President of the National LGBTQ Real Estate Alliance. So tell us a little bit about this organization. What is it all about? What are you hoping to accomplish with your role as National Vice President? And what does the organization hope to accomplish?
The LGBTQ Alliance, we're a 501c6 nonprofit that is dedicated to empowering the LGBTQ community on their path to homeownership. We strive to improve our professional lives of our members while providing a resource for consumers to assist with the home buying, selling, and process as a whole. As National Vice President, my primary role is to oversee the chapter program, which is in 55 chapters in 36 states. And as an organization, we have a lot of different goals we like to accomplish. And it doesn't really matter who's in the position at the time. The organization has the goals, whether it's me or John, who's the current president, or whoever else is going to follow us. We're going through the organization is going to have these goals, which is to end housing discrimination and based off sexual orientation and gender identity. We want to help decrease the amount of LGBT homeless youth that are on the streets these days. Also, there's a lot of issues surrounding the LGBTQ senior population in there. So the Alliance, our mission is to advocate, elevate, and celebrate those victories.
So Alex, a couple of questions. How many, I'm just curious as to how many chapters are here in Ohio. But beyond that, the role of the chapter is obviously to engage realtors, and practicing realtors. But I think there's also kind of a different component in that you guys are trying to bring together allies of the community, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. The organization is not just for the LGBTQ community. It is for allies. I'd like to say, we're creating an army of allies because there are more allies than there are of the LGBTQ community as a whole. We only represent 4.5% of the American population. So the ally is key in the organization because they're going to help push and be that voice on our behalf as well when it comes to discrimination, for housing or for, any other challenges we're having as a group.
I think that's great. And you also are kind of at the forefront in this area in a different way. You created a course specifically for realtors to be able to take that's called, at least here in Ohio, it was called the LGBTQ Community and Home Ownership course, which is a CE course that people can take to fulfill their licensing requirements. Talk with us about that. How did you come up with the idea to create that course? And then share with us a little bit about the content of the course and what the participants get at the end.
And we were also so lucky to have you as a speaker. And you gave us, a bit of this course at our winter conference, which will have happened just a couple weeks ago by the time this episode is airing. So anybody that may have attended that conference, you probably heard a bit of this course. And yeah, let us know more about that, what people can expect. And then for those that attended our conference, how they can learn more.
Yeah, absolutely. The course came about. It was funny because I would just, once I felt comfortable enough to tell people, because I was very reserved when I first got here. So I wasn't like swinging jazz hands, "Hey, hi, I'm Alex," to, everybody that I met. It was kind of like I took a reserved approach and just kind of got comfortable with my surroundings before I became the advocate that, I am here. And the course just came from people asking me questions. Once people found out I was gay, it was like, they were playing Ask the Gay a Question. And they would, ask me a series of questions
Is
Yeah,
that a
it
real
was,
thing?
and,
We
and
just
believe
have
me,
to laugh for a second. 'Cause that was
that
great.
that that's okay, and I'm perfectly okay with that because to me, that's just a conversation. That just starts the conversation, and that makes somebody become more comfortable with it because. I know there's a lot of different theories that people say, or their fear of the LGBT community, or they just don't like them out of some strange reason. That's like all of a sudden, I don't like you because you told me you prefer pumpkin pie over apple pie. It makes no sense. Now I hate you and I'm not going to sell you my house because you don't like pumpkin pie. It makes no sense to me. So the course was spawned off of just questions I was asking and people wanted to know. So I saw that there was such a need for that here. Again, coming from South Florida, we're a little more, we're a little more open there, and it was okay. And it was my bubble, so I felt comfortable there. So coming here, I didn't. But once I came out here and everything was that came from I saw there was such a need for the information here that I'm like, this needs to be a class. It's going to benefit agents, like everywhere. So when I started the class, I did it just first for my brokerage. And then after I molded it more and, I used them as a focus group. And then after I did that, then I have a really great relationship at ACAR, the Akron Cleveland Association of Realtors. And I took the class to them and they absolutely loved it. And that's what got the ball rolling.
This episode of The Real View is brought to you by the Ohio Association of Community Colleges. Ohio's network of community colleges provides accessible training that accommodates the busy lifestyles of aspiring real estate professionals at half the price of a traditional university. With convenient locations in every part of the state, as well as online options, Ohio's community colleges are your smart choice for pre-licensing education. For more details or to start the journey to a real estate career, visit the education page at ohiorealtors.org and then click on the pre-license course locations. I love that you said that, it was okay that everyone was asking you questions because so much of learning comes from asking questions and comes from just having a discussion and learning more about each other. And when you presented at Winter Conference, I was watching the chat box on the side as I'm listening, and there were so many members commenting with their stories, with similar things they've experienced, with their thoughts. And, as you're speaking and sharing your story, they were reacting to it. And it was just great to see that engagement and that conversation, on a topic that, as you mentioned, may not be as open and welcoming. So it was really great to see. And that presentation that you gave at Winter Conference, is that pretty much the course or is there more to it? And I know we were chatting before this podcast and you're like, normally, I like to, be with people and we all wish we could all be together. How was that different or not different from the usual course, what you presented on at Winter Conference?
The material I did present at Winter Conference is definitely in the course. There was some stuff I took out of it. There's a breakout session where, I bring people up into groups and, there's some discussion there. Plus the fact that I couldn't interact as well with people because they had to only add in a chat, which probably also restricted to some of their stories because, it's easier to have a conversation than it is to, I'm not typing 3 paragraphs in a chat here, So I think that restricted the dialogue a lot, but it was very overwhelming, the results, the feedback I got from people just finding me on Facebook and just started sending me private messages and things like that, where I think literally when I was done and my phone and my Facebook were blowing up, I think I just had tears because it was just so overwhelming, everybody's reaction to the class where I think it was a shot in the dark. I always appreciate that, Ohio Realtors allow me to present it, but I didn't know what the feedback was going to be. I didn't know what on a state level. I've done it here at Akron, Cleveland, and things like that, but overall as a state, how it would be received. I was glad it was received well because, again, as I talk about in the course, there's still 27 states in the country that you can be denied housing, shelter, not just buying a house. They could not rent to you or whatever because you are LGBTQ. Okay, so they could literally discriminate you. 27 states in the country, and Ohio being one of them. So the fact that we are, as an organization, Ohio Realtors is embracing this and pushing it down to its members and wanting them to learn this, I think is huge.
Yeah, it is. And did anything like this exist before you kind of brought this kind of training? Was there any resources or anything out there before? Or are you kind of a trailblazer in bringing, something like this to the public and bringing that awareness to all of our realtors?
Well, there are resources. I didn't create the words and the definitions and like that. That's all out there. I put it together, and I put together what that structure was going to look like in a classroom form for agents. And actually, not even for agents. I've had lenders take this. I've had title people take this. So real estate professionals as a whole, I think it's great information. And so all I did was compile it all and put structure to it.
Yeah, I know. I really enjoyed it. And I know, like I said, reading some of the comments and seeing, the interaction on Facebook, I know our realtors really love to hear what you have to say too. And I think it's just such an important thing. And, it bothers me so bad that, like you mentioned, the discriminatory practices are, okay. And that you just want to do something about it. And this is one step closer to being able to hopefully change that. We talked a little bit about some of the challenges that are facing the LGBTQ plus community, one being the discriminatory practices, another the homelessness. What are some of the other challenges that this community faces, and what do you think we can do to try to help and be part of the solution?
Well, there's a lot of different challenges, and I don't know if it stems from people not understanding, but at the end of the day, it should just be human decency. Love is love. I shouldn't have to edit. And it's happened to me here. I'm standing on a street corner with a guy I was dating, and a car drove by and screamed a slur at us. So it's just it's that kind of stuff. It shouldn't be that happening, or it shouldn't be where, it's legal to get married. I want to get married, and then a banquet hall doesn't want to rent me the hall because we're a gay couple, or the baker doesn't want to bake the cake because he's not baking a cake for a gay couple. You know what? At the end of the day, it just should just be about human decency.
So, Alex, I mean, our viewers can't see you, but you are young. You are what I would call a young professional in the real estate industry. And we all know and have heard kind of anecdotally the struggle that younger people have to be open about who they are. And so I don't know if you want to speak a little bit about, you're very open about who you are, not only personally, but professionally, and I would imagine that at first maybe put you at risk, or you felt that you were at risk. But if you had any words to give, both to just young people in general, but also young LGBTQ plus professionals, maybe just based off of your story and experience.
Well, it takes time, and believe me, I didn't get here overnight. It was a struggle, and like everybody in the community, you have to be comfortable with yourself first and in your own skin before you could, express that outward. So there was a struggle when I came out of the closet, and it was all battles inside me, and in my head, where you think that, oh, I'm going to tell my friends, and they're all not going to be my friends. It happens. Don't get me wrong. It totally does happen. So it's the battle that goes in every LGBTQ person's mind when they're dealing with the I want to come out. That's why the homeless youth, is so high among our communities, because they get kicked out of their house. So once you're comfortable in your skin, and believe me, it took a lot to get here, that's when I think you could really have that voice and help create change, about that. So it's been a struggle. And at the beginning too, I wasn't very open, where I tried to, I don't want to say hide it, but I wasn't as open as I am now, where I've had clients, I think I tell the story in the class where I wear a rainbow bracelet only because I had that awkward moment where a client of mine told me that, she had some cougars that she could introduce me to if I wanted to, where it's kind of like, okay, I have that awkward moment where I have to tell her, well, no, am I gay, that I'm gay or this and that or whatever. So I just laughed it off and moved on from there, because again, there was a fear of, okay, now she doesn't want to work with me. But now I've got to the point where, chances are, if you don't want to work with me, I don't want to work with you. I got a text message from a client, and actually I'll probably add this in a slide in one of my classes in the future, a text message from a client saying, hey, my girlfriend is coming on Sunday to see the house with me. Can you turn down the gay?
Ugh.
Oh, wow.
Ugh.
I'm like,
oh, wow.
I didn't know it was a switch. Wait a minute. Hold on off. It's kind of like, so
yeah.
and my text message, in reply was, with all due respect, I could care less. You're buying a $600,000 house. I am my authentic self, and I will not change for anything.
And that's so important. And kudos to you for being able to do that, because that takes a lot of courage. And, I admire you so much for being able to just stand in your truth and present yourself as who you are. And I just think that's amazing. I could just tear up right now, because it's just, it makes me sad that, in 2021, that this is, what you're experiencing as a person who just, like you said, prefers one thing over another. It's crazy and sad that this is the world that we live in, but I don't know. There's hope, that things can change, and I'm hopeful that they can. And one of the things too that I think is really cool that I want to talk about is, when you're talking about allies, and the point of your organization is to kind of bring allies that can, stand up and link arms and join forces together to fight this. Ohio REALTORS signed an MOU with the LGBTQ plus Real Estate Alliance, and we became one of the first state associations in the country to do so. So talk a little bit about what that means and what your thoughts are on that.
That was huge because obviously I was excited that happened, being obviously I'm an Ohioan now. And then the fact that we are one of the 27 states that you could still discriminate against for being discriminated against for being LGBTQ. So the fact that the Ohio Realtors was going to support the chapters, and we have 3 chapters: Cleveland, Cincinnati, and Columbus, and support those chapters and allow the local boards to support those chapters and deliver the message and allow me the space to teach the class. I get invited to speak on this podcast. All those kind of things is huge because in the progress of what can happen, and hopefully eventually the state, if it's not done on a federal level, that at least the state will pass House Bill 369, which is the equality bill for the state of Ohio.
Well, we are thrilled to be a part of it, and we couldn't be prouder to have joined forces with you guys in hopes that we can make change for good. This was so great, Alex. If there's realtors who want to learn more about the LGBTQ plus community and homeownership, or any of the things that we talked about today, maybe, learn more about your course, how can they learn more and find more information on that?
Well, I do hope, because of the fact that I had a class at the Winter Conference, that a lot more boards and local associations will reach out about having it done there, because they have to host it and give me the platform in their in their market in order to do so. So hopefully that'll happen. That happen more. Obviously, they could check out the realestatealliance.org to learn more about the organization. The course is something we are rolling out as a group, as an organization, on a national level, which is huge because there's nothing like this in the industry right now. So eventually it will be available regardless of if associations are offering it or not. But it is CE approved in the state of Ohio as of right now, only in the state of Ohio. So you guys have one up on it, as opposed to the other 49 states. Plus, it's you guys helped me create it here. So you guys are the founders of the course, which I'm excited for that.
That's really cool. I mean, how awesome for Ohio to be one of the first in the country to sign this MOU, and then now the creators and inventors of this wonderful training that hopefully we will open the door up to more states wanting to do something similar. I think that's really awesome, and props to Ohio for really being the trailblazers in this market, and hopefully we can be an inspiration to some of the other states for the long work in the long road we have ahead to be more equal and more diverse in the real estate industry.
Absolutely.
And thank you to you, Alex, for your courage. You're just an absolute delight, and we are so honored to have you here and to get to tell your story, and you to tell your story, because it's a great one.
You are a gift to not only your community, but to us at Ohio Realtors and to the world too. So thank you so much, for sharing and being so open and courageous with everything that you do.
Thank you again. It's all very humbling that people actually care to hear what I have to say or my story. I don't think it's all that exciting, but hey.
No, I think you're inspiring a lot of people, and you're giving a voice to a community that needs it. And hopefully the groundwork that you're doing here will set us up for future success in a world where none of this even matters. You know what I mean? Where we won't have to have trainings. It's just, you are who you are, and that's okay. And maybe someday we'll get there. But I do think the work that you're doing and your story and just being so open and sharing it with the world is going to make a difference.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much for joining us, Alex. And like he mentioned, you guys can learn more about the LGBTQ plus Alliance by visiting that website. Check it out. Alex is awesome. Hopefully we'll be seeing more of you in the future, whether that is on Zoom or in person, but I am sure we will be talking to you again soon. So thank you, Alex, for being here with us today. Thanks, Carrie, as always, for joining me too. And you guys have a great rest of your day. Thank you for listening to The Real View. That wraps up today's episode. You can keep up with the latest on the podcast at ohiorealtors.org/therealview and on Apple or Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Have questions, comments, or suggestions? We want to hear from you. email us at podcast@ohiorealtors.org. We'll see you next time.
This has been a Humble Pod production. Stay humble.